This is every single fight to make next after UFC Fight Night Kansas City, Holloway versus Allen. I've got all of the key fighters from that card, some winners, some losers on the screen right now, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I've hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Max Holloway defeated Arnold Allen. It was a great performance, however, he did take a little bit of damage and it was a 5-rounder, so he is going to need a little bit of time off, not just because of the fight that he had with Arnold Allen, but because of the fact that we don't really want to be rushing Holloway in any way. You know what I'm saying? We don't want him to just like beat a bunch of contenders really fast, so I think he needs to take on a winner of an upcoming matchup in the featherweight division. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying he should take on the winner of Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. No. Because if Volk beats Rodriguez, which is an if, because Rodriguez is dangerous, and Holloway beats the winner of Emmett versus Topuria, there's no contender for Volk to take on. In this case, if Topuria beats Emmett, that is. Because if Topuria beats Emmett, he'll get ranked number 4, ahead of Arnold Allen, who might slip down to number 5. Maybe even Ortega will slip down the rankings due to being a bit inactive, and Topuria can get that number 3 spot. Who knows? So we don't want to do that. We want to do Holloway versus the winner of the Korean Zombie versus Giga Chikadze. I don't know if the Korean Zombie is going to win that matchup. He could do with his grappling. He showed off really good grappling against Dan Ige, so I'm not saying he's definitely going to win, which is why I've put his face here. But I know that they're going to do the Korean Zombie versus Giga Chikadze. They've been talking about it for a very long time, and the fact that they haven't found either of those guys a fresh opponent yet kind of tells me that they're still planning on making that matchup. They were supposed to do it at UFC South Korea at the end of last year. Korean Zombie got injured. Recently, Giga Chikadze got injured. I think they're going to do it in a Fight Night main event in June. So watch out for any, like, Asian fighters on one specific card. That's probably going to be the one where they take it back over to South Korea for his retirement fight. So actually, it can't be the Korean Zombie if he's going to retire. Maybe he doesn't retire in this magical world. So pretend that he's Giga Chikadze here. Because the winner of the Korean Zombie versus Giga Chikadze, in my opinion, should take on Max Holloway in that featherweight division. And maybe, just maybe, if the Korean Zombie was thinking about retirement, the fact that knowing that Holloway is next and a potential matchup for him next might keep him around. We don't want to give Korean Zombie Giga Chikadze in the main event of a UFC South Korea Fight Night and then go, okay, now time for the winner of Evloev versus Mitchell. No. Let's do the Korean Zombie, Giga Chikadze. Winner takes on Max Holloway in the featherweight division. If it's Giga Chikadze, cool. If it's the Korean Zombie, hopefully that Holloway fight will incentivize him to stick around and maybe, who knows, get back towards the title in his own mind, even though Holloway would likely dismantle him, let's be real. So I think that's the more likely scenario here. I was going to move Holloway up to the lightweight division to take on Charles Oliveira, but they're not splitting apart Oliveira versus Dariush. So we'll see what happens. I think Holloway should take on the winner of that matchup now and give Volk, if he beats Rodriguez, the winner of Topuria versus Emmett, which hopefully will be Topuria, which will be a fresh matchup in the featherweight division. We move on to the loser of the main event, Arnold Allen. I hope he didn't break his hand. I really hope he didn't break his hand. He didn't look like he broke his hand because he was swinging big punches even in the 5th round of that fight. So it's not like he stopped throwing certain punches throughout that fight. Arnold Allen, in my opinion, shouldn't take too much time off. Sure, he took some damage, but I really want to see him stay active. I don't want to see him take another year off like he has been earlier in his career. Recently, he's been a bit more active, but we don't have a main event for the UFC Fight Night in London. Leon Edwards wasn't injured whatsoever and was ready to go if Masvidal beat Gilbert Burns. But since Burns beat Masvidal and Covington is now next, Leon Edwards is all of a sudden injured and has injuries and needs to wait until October. Weird, but even still, Arnold Allen should be the main event of that Fight Night card unless they do Tom Aspinall versus Taito Ivasa, which I don't know if they're going to do, because Aspinall seems like he's going to be fighting Marcin Tybura. That's the verbal agreement that we're hearing on the streets of the MMA world. So I think they're going to do Arnold Allen, and I think he should get a top contender in Brian Ortega. I think that's a good matchup. Ortega said he's looking to come back around July or August. Those are the dates that are working for him, and I think Arnold Allen should try and get a quick turnaround here. First 5-rounder, not like he took a ton of damage. He got dropped at the end. He was somewhat off balance. I've rewatched it, but still got dropped at the end of the fight. I think he should get right back in there against Brian Ortega. Turn it right back around. Don't lose the momentum of people finally knowing who he is. Because he's not really the person that people know of. He's not the big name value fighter. I don't think he lost stock against Holloway by losing to him. But if he waits too long, that stock is going to lower over time because he doesn't do much interesting outside of fighting. You know what I'm saying? So let's do Arnold Allen, Brian Ortega. Make the matchup happen. Both guys coming off losses, and I think the winner of that will be right back in position to get a title elimination bout in that division. So, yeah, Arnold Allen, Brian Ortega, make the matchup happen. We move on to in the main event of the UFC London card as well. Let's talk about Edson Barboza's next opponent. He scored a brilliant KO over Billy Quarantillo. Took absolutely no damage whatsoever. Someone who's going to be looking to come back around the middle of the year because of an injury that they had against the person that lost a co-main event in Arnold Allen is Calvin Kattar. I think this is a perfect matchup. I was going to do Edson Barboza versus Sodiq Yusuff, but I have a feeling that Sodiq Yusuff is going to be looking to get back in the cage pretty soon. You know what I mean? He had an injury. He pulled out of a fight quite a while ago now. I don't think he's going to be waiting until the middle of the year or the end part of the year to get right back in there. So here's what I'm thinking. We know Pereira's moving up to 205. I think an absolute amazing card would be find a Brazilian light heavyweight. If Johnny Walker beats Anthony Smith, you do Poatan versus Walker in the main event of a Brazil fight night in San Antonio, Sao Paulo, Brasilia. Who knows where they're going to go. UFC Fight Night Brazil. Johnny Walker, Alex Pereira in the main event. Co-main event, Edson Barboza versus Calvin Kattar. I think that would be an ideal situation, and I think that would be a great matchup in the featherweight division, and a fun matchup for Edson as well, that he could possibly win, because Calvin's just coming off a leg injury. He don't deal with leg kicks too well anyway, and Barboza's got some of the nastiest leg kicks in the game, so I'd love to see that matchup. Edson Barboza, Calvin Kattar. It could even be a fight night main event in the Apex, a week fight night main event, but still, main card of a pay-per-view at some point. End of July, August area. Edson Barboza versus Calvin Kattar is a great matchup in my opinion. We move on to a fight that was on the prelims but should have been the feature fight, which is why I've put it in this position. Brandon Royval, he says he's been offered a chance to be the backup opponent for the UFC 290 main card. I disagree. I'm not being salty because he beat Nicolau, who I picked to win. I'm just like, he was just on the prelims. You can't put someone that was on the prelims in a title fight next. His interviews are getting like thousands of views. You know what I'm saying? In a bad way. Like single digit thousands of views. So let's like put him on a good position on a card before we give him a title fight. Because Kutalaba's on the fucking Kutalaba can lose 2 in a row and get a main event against Nuzachukwu. You can't put Royval in a good position on a card. BS. We need to get these flyweights that are fighting for a belt coming up soon in a good position on a card. Kai Kara France, in a couple of months, is fighting against Amir Albazi. I think the winner of that, hopefully Kai Kara France, should get a rematch against Brandon Royval, and they should put it in like the co-main event of a UFC Apex Fight Night card. Great main event of the Apex. That is the co-main event. Maybe they could even slide it onto a weaker pay-per-view main card, the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view. We've got to start getting our flyweight contenders known and out there before we give them title fights, because otherwise there's no hype behind that contender. Royval, Kai Kara France, put it as the co-main event of a fight night at least, in my opinion. Get it some spotlight before we start giving them title fights. Make it happen. We move on to another fight. Azamat Murzakanov got a win over Dustin Jacoby. He hurt his arm in the fight, I hear, so he's going to need a little bit of time off. Someone else who's going to need a lot of time off to work on his game and also recover from the damage he took in his recent fight is Jimmy Crute in the light heavyweight division. Now, it's not a nice matchup for him, I get that, but They both are going to be on similar schedules. They're both ranked towards the bottom end of the rankings in the light heavyweight division. Azamat Murzakanov needs a bit of time off because of his hand. Also took a little bit of damage in that fight in the third round, other than when Jacoby was holding him up against the cage because he has an extra chromosome. Jimmy Crute took a lot of damage against Manyfield in February. So I still think he needs to take a couple of months off before he starts getting back into a training camp. So I'm thinking end of the year, September, October area, we do Murzakanov versus Jimmy Crute on the main card of a fight night again. I think that would be an ideal situation. Maybe they go back to Australia for a fight night at the end of the year. Who knows? I think that's something that should be on the card, though. We move on. Pedro Munhoz got a big win over Chris Gutierrez. Someone's got to fight him. It's Umar Nurmagomedov next for Pedro Munhoz. Someone's got to fight Umar Nurmagomedov next, and they've already discussed the idea of it being Pedro Munhoz. So why not make it happen in Abu Dhabi in October? We got 6 months. I know Umar said he wanted to fight in May or July, but I doubt they're going to get that done because if Merab's the one they're offering to him, they've guaranteed offered him to a bunch of other contenders that just don't seem to want to take the fight. Because you don't go like, okay, who do we give a fight to Umar? He hasn't beat a single ranked contender. I know, let's give him number 1 in the division. They didn't do that straight away. They probably gave him everyone else. They all said no or were booked up. And then they said, oh, well, Merab's the only one that's free right now. But they didn't end up doing that fight. So I think they should do Pedro Munhoz versus Umar Nurmagomedov in October in Abu Dhabi on the main card of that pay-per-view. That will incentivize Munhoz to take it because it will be in a great position on the card. And I think that will be a great matchup that will be interesting as well because Munhoz is no joke on the ground. He's very good defensively off of people trying to take him down. And he's no joke on the feet and he's got a granite chin. So I think it'll be a real test for Umar. Let's make that fight happen in Abu Dhabi in October. We move on. Jan Cutelaba is back in action. And he got a big win over Barboza. To get right back on track. I say don't leave him out of the cage for too long. Let's put him back in there against Marcin Prachnio on the UK card. The only reason I'm saying that is because although they're not from the UK, they are from Europe. You've got Jan Cutelaba from Moldova. You've got Marcin Prachnio from Poland. If their fans are going to go I just spat everywhere. If their fans are going to go anywhere, it's somewhere else in Europe. You know what I'm saying? So they can go to London. Their fans can go out to London from Europe. They can bring their family over a little bit easier than going to America or Australia or somewhere else in the world. So let's do Jan Cutelaba versus Marcin Prachnio. Both guys coming off wins recently. Prachnio came off a win a couple of weeks ago, broke his foot. So he'll need a little bit of time off, but let's get him back in there in July anyway. Versus Jan Cutelaba. That makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Put it on like the main card opener of the London card fight night in July. We move on. Gillian Robertson got a big win over Piera Rodriguez. A very good win over Piera Rodriguez as well. Where she secured herself a submission in the second round. And she's Canadian. And there's a Canada card coming up real soon. UFC 289 in June. In 2 months' time. There's not too much time, but she didn't take any damage in her last fight. So let's get her back on that card. She said she wants a quick turnaround. I say oblige her of that quick turnaround. I'd love to turn her around. Either way, oblige that quick turnaround and put her on the Canada card. UFC 289, somewhere high up on the prelims against another fighter from Canada, who you might not realize is from Canada because they hold up the Mexican flag. But they were born and raised in Canada and fighting out of Canada. Lupita Godinez in the strawweight division. A couple of weeks ago, she had a tough fight with Cynthia Calvillo, so she's going to need a little bit of time to recover, but not too much time. I say put them on the Canada card. I'm sure they'll both want to fight there because they've got family there and friends in that area, so I think that would be a perfect place to put them on the card. Maybe the second fight up on the prelims, not the early prelims, but the actual prelims, the final 4. Maybe put them somewhere there. That would be your women's fight for the card sorted outside of the main event, which is going to ruin everything. So yeah, just do that. Robertson versus Godinez. Good matchup and interesting as well because it'll really show how good Robertson's grappling is if she can take down Godinez and submit her, because Godinez is no joke on the ground and has really good scrambles herself. So make that matchup. Robertson versus Godinez at UFC 289's prelims in Canada. We move on. Chris Gutierrez, the one other loser on the card that I have here. I think he should take on, and I think this is a great matchup. Timing-wise, Style-wise for both of them as well, I think this makes a ton of sense. Chris Gutierrez is coming off a loss. He's old, though, so I doubt he's going to want to take too much time off. Someone got KO'd recently at UFC 287. I've kind of given it away. They got KO'd by a friend of Calvin Kattar's, Rob Font, who's also a great top bantamweight contender. And that fighter was Adrian Yanez. I'm not looking for too quick of a turnaround on this one. I just think it'll be a fun matchup. Two guys coming off losses in the division. Maybe if they go to Mexico, I'm not sure of their ethnic background. It gets a bit mixed up sometimes when you go south of the US. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of the same. Let's just move on from this minefield of a topic. But they both could be of Mexican heritage if I had to have a little guess. I'm not sure if they are. But Gutierrez and Yanez ends with Ez on both of them, and that's typically a Mexican thing, or at least a Central American thing. So, Chris Gutierrez, Adrian Yanez, if they are going to Mexico in September, which is the rumors, then put them on the card. Great matchup, really fun firefight on the feet, and it gives both of them time to recoup, regroup, and start working back towards the top of the rankings again if they are to win against each other in that matchup. Good stuff. So maybe if Giga Chikadze beats Korean Zombie as well, he should fight Holloway instead. But that's what I think should happen. Every fight to make after UFC Kansas City. And yeah, for Royval, don't give him the title shot next. He's just on the prelims. And if you are going to give him the title shot next, let's start making this a bit more of a habit. Stop putting him on the prelims. Because you clearly don't care about where people are put on cards. You were willing to put Irene Aldana versus Raquel Pennington in the main event of UFC San Antonio not too long ago. Before we moved Sandhagen versus Vera over there. That's what you were willing to do, UFC. You were going to put Irene Aldana versus Raquel Pennington as the main event of a fight night. So don't tell me you can't put Royval versus Cara France on at least the main card of a fucking fight night. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.